You're listening to Beyond the Dose, the podcast where healing, self-discovery, and transformation intersect. Hosted by Michelle Harrell and brought to you by PurpleCityExperience.com. Each episode explores the power of psychedelics, science, and soul work to help you reconnect with your purpose. It's time to go deeper, beyond the medicine, beyond the noise, beyond the dose.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Dose. I'm your host, Michelle Harrell. And if you have been following our podcast for a while, then you may remember today's guest from our first season of Beyond the Dose. It is my pleasure to welcome back Dr. Tiffany Ryan. She was a guest on my podcast last year in season 1, and it was a difficult but beautiful conversation that we had just to refresh people's memories or for people that are new listeners. And Tiffany's going to talk a lot about it today, but Tiffany actually lost her son to suicide in 2024. And she was brave enough and courageous enough to really share her story and her process of grieving and coming to terms of acceptance with our audience and with the world. And it's my pleasure to welcome her back. She has, since our time last time, she's written a book called Soul Work, and it is fantastic. I highly recommend it. If anyone's going through grief, it can be such a beautiful resource for helping you along that journey. So welcome back, Tiffany.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So I mean, we're going to get into talking about your book for sure, but I am curious just generally, maybe how you've been, how has the grieving process been going for you? Do you have, new perspective?
It's interesting because we were just talking before we started recording on when was that last podcast episode? And I think maybe I was only 6 months into
it was fresh out of the gate. Yeah.
And but I had been having these revelations even, at the beginning around acceptance and surrender and those important concepts in grief. And since then one of my main supports, I guess, or resources through this has been psychedelic journeys. I've done 5 this past year and a half, or I guess a little over a year. So that's given me a lot of new perspectives. Has been able to communicate things to me that I needed to know that were really helpful for me to be able to just understand what's going on or what went on with him. But, I feel like at this point, I have a solid grasp on grief. And before I was in the throes of it, and now I'm like, okay, this is it. So we have the ups and the downs and the unraveling and then the finding more truths and the expansion and the contraction. And this is just it. And, I wrote recently that I've been underwater enough times to know that I will surface again. So I have that, when I do have my when my really rough moments or days or even weeks, I know that I'm going to surface and it's just part of it. There's just all these layers and layers and layers to get through. Yeah, even when we know these bigger truths, it's still the reality of feeling the deep grief.
And I always say, it goes away, right?
It doesn't. And I don't want it to.
Right.
I really don't. I oddly love my grief. I love it and I hate it,
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. I mean, I myself have been going through some personal stuff this beginning of the year, and I've just learned to really allow myself to fully feel into the moment when that sadness wave comes on or grief or whatever it is. It's like I lean into it instead of trying to push it away. And I think that, I know that you feel the same about, because we've talked before and it's in your book, but our suffering really comes from when we try to fight what we're feeling, or we try to push it away or compartmentalize or act like it doesn't exist and try to keep ourselves busy. That's really where the suffering happens. And so, allowing yourself to fully feel it.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
that is one of the chapters, like softening and leaning in is
Mhm.
one of the chapters, but also perspective is one
Mhm.
of the chapters. And I think it's like not one or the other, it's both. So it's like you soften, you lean in, you feel it. And then after that, in that moment, you can choose a perspective. And then you'll have
Mhm.
multiple cycles. Like that's just over and
Yeah.
over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're getting into your book now, but like I loved there was something you talked about with your healing being like it's not linear, which I say all the time, but I loved your explanation of it being like a spiral, like every time you're going a layer deeper and deeper and deeper, but you might have to revisit the same lesson over and over again, which most of us do, right?
Yes, yes. And just
Yeah.
a slightly different like angle of it or yeah. That's definitely been my experience. I recently said to my guide, I was like, "Oh my gosh," like after my latest journey, I was like, "I thought I had made so much progress and right now I'm feeling like I'm starting at square one."
Mm.
And she said, "No, no." I think like from my heart up here I made a ton of progress and now it's like in my body that I'm
Mm.
dealing with, which is hard and it feels like
Yeah.
from the ground up a little bit, but yeah.
Well, and I mean, I don't know about you. I think our culture wants to define progress as it like it goes away. And
Right.
that's not really what progress is when we talk about grief or, sadness or feeling whatever it is we're feeling. So,
Mhm.
like I was talking with my mom last week and I mean, we lost my stepdad in 2014 and we both started crying thinking about him and missing him. It's been several years, many years. So, sometimes I wake up, have a dream about my grandma and I wake up crying, because I miss her. So, it's one of these things that doesn't go away, but somehow we feel like we're not making progress if we still feel these things. I don't know.
Right, right. Yeah, and I like to think of one of my perspective shifts when I am feeling like, wow, I lost my son. Language, I am cognizant of the language I use.
Mm,
Lost is probably not the most ideal way to talk about it.
okay.
He went ahead of us, he transitioned,
Mm,
he's now in spirit. But I do have a chapter on consciousness studies in the book too, because that is one of my perspective shifts where I'm like, "Oh, right. I get so conditioned with the society around death and grief that
mm-hmm.
like it's over. You've lost the person. You have to learn how to live without them. And it's like, no, I'm just learning a new relationship with
Mm-hmm.
them and how that's going to look and being attentive to that every day. And that is my work right now, especially with the psychedelic work is to become as clear of a channel as I can possibly be so that I can very easily connect with Noah. And yeah, that's been the work that I feel like is worthwhile
Yeah.
right now.
No, thanks for saying that. Because, we all fall into the language that is taught to us. So
Yes.
I appreciate that perspective a lot because I agree with you. It's like they're still with you, they're in your heart, they're connected to you. You birthed him, right? So, um, but they're somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
very, very close to us, actually. No, in our there's a Helping Parents Heal support group I'm a part of, and they are very cognizant of language. We call ourselves shining light parents, letting the light of our children shine through us as we continue on in
Mm,
our lives. The language piece is really important for them,
mm-hmm.
and they'll call us out like we do not call ourselves bereaved. That's not a
Mm,
thing. And we share stories of connection with our children and it's really beautiful. So that being in an environment like that is has also been one of my tools, one of
yeah.
my things to
Yeah.
really help.
Amazing. I loved your book. If anyone out there is dealing with grief, I highly recommend that you pick up Tiffany's book called Soul Work and just so many good nuggets in there of how to walk through that path. And
And I
yeah.
kind of think too, it's for grief, but it's also just for life. Like when life's
Yeah,
hard,
agree. I
like
agree. Yeah.
just hardness of life, because that's
Yeah.
what it is. Like we have these challenges for a reason.
Right.
And this is sort of, I call it a field guide to kind of help us navigate, like, oh, okay, how am I going to get through this without so much suffering?
Right.
And I wrote another book, Noah Grant's Hope, and that's a compilation of my daily reflections on grief and my process. And I think it was 231 days of that are
Mm,
in a book. And so I wrote that one first. And then, but from that, I had all these like lessons or nuggets, but they were all sort of just floating around and I hadn't
mm-hmm.
quite solidified for me, what they were. And then I don't know how it works, just one day it was like, okay, here they are. These are the things that I've sort of said in this book, but like, not a very direct way. And it really helped me. I mean, these books have been my therapy,
Yeah.
they're for me. And then I hope, maybe they'll help some people too. But actually the funny story, when the copy for me to review before it actually went live came to my door, and I had a really hard night that night. I had like a flashback in a breathwork session, and drove home and I was just crying and I was so sad. And then this was on my doorstep. So I got in bed, and it's an easy read. It
is.
So I got in bed and I started reading it, and I was like, right. Okay, right. Like, good reminder. Thank you.
Yeah, you're like, thank you, past self. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, I agree. It is. You're right. It's not just for grief. I think it's for any kind of difficulty, struggle, challenge that we're moving through in life. There are so many good tips in this book. And honestly, I felt like it really was a very nice parallel to a psilocybin experience that I see a lot of my clients go through, starting kind of with suffering, fear, and control. It was just how most of my clients come to me, right? They're suffering and they are afraid of letting go of control. And that is kind of the first thing we tackle in preparation. So yeah, to me, it just clicked so much. It made so much sense.
Well, when I was writing this, I thought, I think this is good for people post-journey to read. Like,
Yeah.
it does as their own little workbook after a
Yeah.
journey, because, like the control, that is one thing that the psychedelic journeys have taught me so well, is to release control. You
Yeah.
have to. So it's a really good practice, every time to do that.
In
Yeah.
fact, I just read a quote last week in my Bible that it wasn't scripture. It was like notes on scripture, but it says something about, suffering really lies in the things that we cannot control and in our relationships. That's where our main suffering comes from. I'm like, yeah, spot on. It's totally about the things we can't control.
And, I just had this come to me in my last journey, this thing about suffering. I was just feeling it all. I was feeling literally like the pain of my whole life at once. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is too much. And I realized, I was like, wait, if I'm observing it with my ego mind and I'm like, oh my gosh, that stuff is so horrible. Like, ouch, 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 that hurts so much. It's really hard. But if I just am in it, if I just allow myself to like flow into it, no resistance, it still is uncomfortable, like, but it's not the same acute, like,
Pain.
feeling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is hard to like to actually allow emotions to flow through you as they come. And one of the things I talk about in the book is, and what I really have learned from myself over and over again with this, is I've been doing this big expansion work and trying to feel it all, but you really have to be resourced before you can do that safely, or like in a way that feels safe. And by resourced, I mean like both like physically, like having a yoga practice or a breathwork practice or something where you can hold those emotions physically, but also just having supports and resources to go to, because I think that's why a lot of us don't feel our feelings, is it feels impossible to actually hold those in our body.
Yeah. Well, and it hasn't been modeled for us, honestly, right? Like, for most of us, I shouldn't, there are exceptions, but, as children, we're also taught to not, like, I think to my own parenting, hindsight's always clear. And I have some
Right.
regrets about certain things as a parent, as we all do.
Mhm.
But, like your child's acting out and having a temper tantrum. And what do we do typically? We're busy, we're trying to do life. We probably are in in the middle of something. And so we kind of address the behavior, but we don't ever address the emotions behind the
Right.
behavior. And we kind of teach our kids to stop feeling whatever you're feeling and just stop it, right? Time out, right? And so we don't even really give space for our kids to learn how to feel their emotions in a healthier way. Obviously, you have to correct the behavior and the outbursts, but give them the tools then to process whatever they're feeling. Like, hey, I know you're angry because you can't have that chocolate bar, right? Or whatever it is. But and then talk to them about how they handle that anger and how or the sadness or whatever it is. But,
Mm.
we're not really modeled that. We're
We're
not.
not. We're not taught it at all. And actually, I just started reading, it's a classic, The Eastern Body, Western Mind. I don't know if you've read
Mm-hmm.
that, but
Mm-mm.
it's so good. And it talks about these developmental things like that we experience and then how that shapes us with our actions and our ability
Mm-hmm.
to hold emotions and all of this moving forward. And I think it should be like required reading for parents. I wish I had known,
Mm-hmm.
all of this stuff when my kids were little, but it is really fascinating. And so I know where that comes from for me, from my developmental stuff. And now it's a process of kind of unwinding all of that and actually being able to feel it all, which like I think the chapters in the book sort of go between those two ways. So the feeling and
Mm-hmm.
then perception, but in different categories. So, like, well, I have a chapter on suffering. That's the first one
Mm-hmm.
because I call out that there is a difference between suffering and pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about that on the first
I think we
podcast
did.
a
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah.
and that you can choose not to suffer. Suffering is a choice. Pain is just part of life, but the suffering is in the holding on, in the resistance, in the not feeling, in the living not in the present. So you're living in the past or the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved how you talked about that. Because suffering can't live in the present.
It can't.
I mean, you wrote that almost exactly, I think. And it's true. If you're fully present and feeling what you're feeling, then there is no suffering. Like, you can't
Right.
suffer in the present. It's always about something in the past or something that we imagine could happen in the future.
Right.
And so, yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, and I have all the topics overlap. So I have a group called Soul Work Circles, and we get together
Mm,
twice a month and go over one chapter, and we all kind of talk about it. And I think last night was our eighth one, and all the topics really just weave
yeah.
together. They all relate. And I have little questions at the end of each chapter to help people think about the topic, and often it's related to like another chapter's topic too. Like, how do
Right.
these relate? How do
Yeah.
these go together? And I think so there's a chapter in between those on post-traumatic growth, and I
Mm,
think that might be key to that ability to move from
mm,
the hard parts into the growth. So post-traumatic growth is a academic theory, but really I say like it was borrowed from like life, the Bible. I don't know. Like
yeah.
it's just a thing that we experience as humans. And it is the idea that when we experience something very traumatic,
Mm-hmm.
generally it's very traumatic, it opens a window for us to have huge amount of spiritual growth
Mm-hmm.
and totally change our lives. And those are our gifts, right? Those
Yeah.
really challenging times. And some people are able to go that route. And there's a lot of studies and research around post-traumatic growth, like what makes it so that somebody can choose the growth
Can.
route and
Right.
somebody else can't. And part of that is resilience and resource and, having supports. Like I've been able to do all this psychedelic work and I have access
Mm-hmm.
to, all kinds of books and podcasts and I read a lot and I have time and space for all of that. And so I feel I'm very fortunate in that way. But yeah, post-traumatic growth, it's that moment after the
Yeah.
really tough stuff that, okay, what are we going to do with this?
I mean, yeah, I thank you for saying, but for me, I always say there's purpose in our pain, right? It's kind of that. It's like, if you can get that perspective for yourself, like, okay, what is this trying to teach me? I don't like it. It feels bad, but what is it trying to teach me? And we don't always get the answers right away. I just had an integration call with a client last week, who he's wanting all these, deep insights after his journey right away. And I'm like, well, I said, part of integration is learning to be okay with not having the answers right away.
Right.
Right. And really being, like, literally being okay with that and letting it unfold naturally. Cause when we try to force it and try to, it doesn't work.
No. And that's the surrender piece. And
Mm-hmm.
I have come back around to surrender over and over again where I think I have found it and then it seems elusive. And I had this awareness actually that surrendering is not a place you reach. It is a choice almost every minute of the day for me.
Yeah. It's a practice.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a practice for sure. And
I mean, I
My
think most of these things are in your book. I mean, I
Mhm.
think most of them are, you have to, that's what we mean by integration too. After, we talk about psychedelics, it's like, it's a practice, it's a daily choice. You have to show up, be present, you have to practice surrender all the time, right?
Mhm.
Even in something so minute as like you're sitting in traffic and you're late and, you're getting angry and road rage, it's like, oh, here's a moment for me to learn to surrender again, right?
Yes.
It's like, yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
Ram Dass calls that grist for the mill, which I liked that term. It's like the day-to-day stuff is grist for the
Mhm.
mill. It's just like how
Mhm.
we practice, how we get
Mhm.
better at these things. And like the presence thing too. It's not like, oh, I've learned how to be present. Like, no, we're never always present.
Mm-mm.
We
No.
have to constantly be like, oh, look at that. I totally wasn't present.
Yeah.
Here, I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
bring myself back. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we live so much of our, of our life up here.
We do. And that's something, well, there are two things I wanted to say. One is around like the post traumatic growth and the hard things being a gift. Just recently, my son, who is still with us here, he had a hard thing happen and he said, Mom, I never understood you saying that Noah's death has been a gift
Mm.
until now. And
Mm.
he's like, I understand what you mean now. And I
Mm.
realized I was like, gosh, yeah, I think some of the things I say sometimes I don't realize how much it's like not relatable, until you've had some kind of your own aha with it. But
Yeah.
I have said that, and I believe it. I do. No, I have had this, my whole life is different. I'm a different person. And
Right.
I wouldn't want to go back to the person that I was
Mm.
before. I love this journey. It's really freaking hard, and I love it so much. It's like the most meaningful. And
Yeah.
I thank Noah for that. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have that without this. And so that's a hard thing for maybe some people to understand me say, but I feel it really deeply in my heart.
Mhm.
I do. And, I'm one of those people that thinks that there is a plan, a higher
Yeah,
purpose
me
to
too.
things. And I think Noah and I came up with this plan together
Mm.
before we were here. And I was shown that in a journey that's what we
Mm.
did. He showed me that. And yeah, that kind of gives you a sense of it doesn't mean it's easy at all. And that's the thing too, I think with this book, what I liked about the things that came to me are it's not spiritual bypassing. There are tools to help us, but to help us be in it and
Mhm.
like feel it. And then have moments where we can come back and be like, right, I'm the soul in this body. This is not the end. This is all a big play we're in,
Yeah.
and just take some of the weight off of
Practice
it.
run.
I wish I had had a chapter. Actually, if I do another revision of this, I might add it. But in my latest journey, I was just like going through all this stuff. It was like so much, so much. And then I would have these moments where I was like, right. Noah would say, just be chill. Just be chill, And I'd be like, yeah. Like I can choose to just be chill for a moment too. I can do all of it, you know.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I talk about after what I see a lot of clients learn after their psilocybin journey with me is that they learn that there's a difference between reacting and responding. Right.
Mm,
And that there's a subtle difference. And when you realize you have the ability and capability to respond versus react, like things really shift
yeah.
if you can really practice that. And we fall down, we're human. I still
Yeah.
react sometimes, somebody will trigger me, or usually someone
Mhm.
close to me, like my kids or my partner or my parent or whatever. But like, we're not perfect, but even when I do fall down, I can quickly course correct because I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what that was.
Right. You have a reference point, and yeah, and there's a chapter on zooming out too, and that's I think sort of what you're talking about with
Hmm.
the respond versus react, because when you're reacting, you're not zoomed out, you're in it, you're enmeshed in it. But when you can zoom out and see everything for what it is, then it's like, okay, I'm not like so in this issue or problem. Like I can see everything and then
and
respond.
and I have choice. I have free will to respond differently, right? I can
Right.
yell or have an outburst, or I can choose to go, okay, wait a second, and like, yeah. And that was when you said just be chill. I'm like, yeah, it's like I can choose to be chill here. and respond
Right.
differently. I can let you know you hurt my feelings, or I can let you know I don't agree with something without the emotional outburst.
Right. Yeah. I got back into teaching this past fall. So I start each of my classes with a Zoom out
Mm.
because these students are coming in from their job or their internship and all their classes and their families, and they're stressed. And
Their phone.
yeah, and I felt like, we start with breath work and then we zoom out and we're like, remember, we're on this spinning rock in the middle of the universe. And you're sitting in front of your computer about to learn about social policy. Like, just keep everything in perspective.
Yeah.
It's,
That's
yeah,
amazing. I think I wish more teachers started their class lessons with that, some breath
yeah.
work. That's amazing.
I know. I thought they didn't like it at first. And so I stopped, and then I had a student be like, why aren't we doing that anymore?
Oh,
I was like,
nice.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
is good. It's
awesome.
good for me too to get present, right? Like
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
reset. But yeah, so the next chapter, stillness. This is an interesting one because we have like an epidemic of people who can't be still.
I know. Girl, I see it every day. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable, but it's because I call this out in the book. It's because we equate in our culture, we equate stillness with laziness.
We do.
There's
And
this,
there's this fear that bubbles up, I see, with clients that struggle with being still with themselves. It's like this
Mhm.
fear slowly kind of starts to bubble up, and they don't know what to do with this silence. They don't know what to do. It feels awkward to them because they don't do it.
Yes.
They never slow down, get quiet. And especially if there's other people in the room like myself, it's like, I should have to fill the space. I have to fill it with something, right?
My guide called it, we were talking about it in relation to something else, like with boundaries, but it's just that getting to know yourself. She's like, it kind of feels like an awkward first date,
Yeah.
and it's going to
Yeah.
feel like that for a little bit.
Yep.
And
That's a great
it
way
is,
to describe it. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was just like nailed it. It is. You're just like, gosh, what am I doing? Who is this? What am I? Like when you're so used to just like doing your daily activities and not being still enough to say, hello, me,
And
you
to
know?
actually investigate what you're feeling, because I had a client one time, as she started to launch, as the mushroom started to take effect and she started to launch, she got a little anxiety, got a little scared, and had to help her breathe and talk her through it. And as we continued the conversation, and I kind of said, well, what's going on right now, what are you afraid of, and we kind of peeled back the layers, and finally she said, I'm afraid of what my own mind is going to show me.
Mhm.
And I think I see it with a lot of women. I always say highly anxious women with trauma over 40 are my toughest clients. They really struggle with being still with themselves for that reason. I think that number one, they're often kind of perfectionists or used to people pleasing or doing and going, going, going all the time. But number two, they're not in touch with their actual feelings. And so when they get quiet, it's like, oh my God, now I have to deal with all this. And they kind of, so yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
where I feel like the medicine is actually really supportive or can be, at least I'd mentioned to you before we started recording, I've been working with MDMA a little bit,
Mhm.
and that seems to provide like a buffer for me where I'm like, "Oh no, no, I can't feel this is too much," but it lets me. Whereas
Mhm.
if I think I didn't have that in my system, I wouldn't be able to go there fully.
Be overwhelming. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, they call it the love drug for a reason, right? And they use it for trauma for a reason, and I think
right.
that's exactly right. It's so heart opening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like, yeah, it just provides a buffer. So you're not feeling the full assault, I guess, of your
Right.
emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so the stillness piece I think is critical, and that is a practice too. Like you said, you have to take time to be still with yourself regularly
Mhm.
and really connect and ask yourself. I talk about somatic descent. I think it's in that chapter. Or maybe that's in connecting with our innate wisdom, but our bodies have so much to tell us. Like if
Mhm.
we can just be still, answers will come.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there's a really good book called Somatic Descent I recommend. And at the end of this book, I have all my resources listed, all the books and podcasts
Yeah.
and things in here because there's
Yeah.
just so
Beyond the
many.
Dose is mentioned. I was so
It
honored.
is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there's somatic descent, listening to your body, finding the time to be still with that. And then, yeah, I move into non-attachment, perspective, and acceptance. So it's like the suffering piece and then the tuning into yourself, being present piece, and then kind of these bigger pieces of, okay, so now I'm here. I've tuned into myself. I've gotten past the suffering. How do I still deal with these things in my life, right? How am I supposed to do that? And that's where these things come in. And, non-attachment is, we know that everyone has heard about non-attachment. This isn't new. Again, a practice. It's not something you reach like, oh, I'm not
Now I'm done.
attached.
Yeah. I'm all done. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, none of these are one and done, right? Like it's a
Mhm.
continued practice always. And
Mhm.
you continue to revisit it. I think I mentioned this before. I loved what you said in your book about each of these it's not linear. It's like you continue, it's a spiral and you kind of continue to maybe go deeper or you think you're done and then here it is again, the same lesson, right? But each time it's like an more expansive way of
Mhm.
feeling that lesson or learning that lesson. And yeah.
Yeah, and the non-attachment I think can even be related to the fact that you think you learned a lesson. Because I mean, I feel like that was me. I was like, okay, God, I think I'm done with that one. Whew, thank God. And then it shows up and I'm like, what? No, I was done with that. I was attached to the idea of being done with that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and again, I think that's our culture, right? Our culture teaches us like we check things off a list and that's how we make progress. That's not how healing happens or spiritual growth or emotional growth, it's not like that.
And that's actually that realization is why I felt okay putting some of my thoughts out into the world like this, because I say it up front multiple times, like, this is a process. Like, I'm at one point in the process, but like, it's not like I'm like, look at me, I figured it out, guys.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
not it at all. It's just we have to be okay with like sharing what we're learning in the process because the process will never be done. So if we
Mhm.
wait, then we'll never
Yeah.
share with other people.
Amen to
So
that.
non-attachment, we talked about perspective already. That one was big for me, even from the very beginning. I had a friend who actually, her son had transitioned 10 years prior, and she taught me this, that we can, after those moments of, the ugly, snotty cries, the wailing, all of that, in that kind of, when you're so exhausted from that, and there's sort
Mhm.
of just like this pause. In that pause, it's the thank you. I love you.
Mm.
So grateful for my time with you. Like that.
Yeah.
If you can do that a little bit more, even like 5 seconds more each day, you find more and more peace.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember the exact quote from scripture, but there's, basically, if you can feel gratitude with the least, then you will feel gratitude with the most in abundance, right? Yeah, I always, when I'm in those dark spaces, that's what I try to lean into is gratitude every time. It's like, okay, what am I
Mhm.
trying to learn from that? What am I meant to learn from this? And also perspective, like this is a blip in time and I am going to get through this. And yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And then, like, the acceptance piece, it's again sort of like we've talked about this with a couple of these, but the acceptance is not a destination. That is also a choice every like moment of every
Mhm.
day. Yeah. And there are moments where it's like, F this, like what? And then I can move into, yeah, I have to feel it and then I can
Yep.
move back into it.
Yep.
There was this, it was such a good, I'll find it. After my last journey, there was a song called Light, Dark, Light that my guide played for me. And it was so like, yes, that's exactly what it is, that everything is expansion, contraction. That is creation. And so if we stay, she sent me a poem by Rumi that it was talking
Mm.
about the palm opening and closing, opening and closing. And if it stays open, you're paralyzed. There's no awareness of anything really when we're not doing this.
Right.
Right. So the
Yeah.
acceptance for me, it's the acceptance that that is what life is.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. That
Yeah.
like I'm not trying to get to the point of having my palm open all the time. That's not even a thing.
It's not, yeah, it's not
You know?
reality, right? Yeah.
So to surrender and lean into, hey, this is what it is, and flowing with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's challenging at times, but yeah, that is the trick. I don't know if you want to call it a trick, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's my party trick, acceptance.
yeah, I mean, yeah, because life keeps lifing. I mean, things will happen to us that we don't like. I mean, and death is part of life. No, no matter what. I love some of your prompts, journal prompts, and questions in there too around death
Hmm.
specifically, because I think that's a very core common fear that most humans have. And I loved the way you kind of drilled down with some different questions to get to like different angles of that and the root of it. And really, understanding that we're all gonna die. We just don't know when. We all
Right.
are. So, yeah.
That's the one thing we have in common, that we all
Yeah.
have in common. And yeah, I think, and also these like things that we go through. I have a list of the common ways we suffer, or the common experiences that we have that can
Mhm.
create suffering. And so it's like we're not alone. This is very predictable.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
14 of I listed, and that seems to like cover it for me.
The other thing that I loved about your book too is when you started talking about parenting and legacy. And I'm curious, how are you showing up and parenting differently? And how have your children, I mean, you mentioned your son a minute ago, but how have they responded and noticed? And how does it feel different?
Yeah, that the parenting thing has been a big thing that I've contemplated, especially because Noah died by suicide. And
Mm-hmm.
like, how can we better support our children and
Mm-hmm.
prepare them for the hardships in life? What I realized is that I had to go back to the control chapter. I don't have control over my children. That's an illusion, but I do have influence, and I can use my influence. And so what I figured out with that is I'm doing my work to show up
Mm-hmm.
differently, to deal with the grief so that I can show up for them. And I really want to show them a way of being in the world that's not full of suffering,
Right.
And
And not only just happiness, right?
right.
It's not butterflies and rainbows, right? It's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah.
And that's it. That's part of it. So what are we going to do with that? How do we make meaning? And honestly, my kids that have been kind of annoyed with me. They think I'm super woo woo now. Mom's gone off the deep end, but then they'll come back with certain things and like, oh, well, yeah, I guess like you were right about that, or like I kind of see that now. And so, but they
Yeah,
have their own process. I can't force it on
that's
them.
right.
So
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, my daughters are young adults now, both in college, and we've had some growing pains, some major growing pains in the last, year, and we're still going through it because I'm setting different boundaries and they're also learning to be themselves and grow into themselves. And yeah, I definitely recognize, like, I can't control what they do. I can only, offer advice if they want it. But nowadays they don't really want it very much,
I know.
but yeah, but I know they're gonna come back around. Like, I remember my own, early 20s, and I wasn't too kind to my mom at times either because I thought I knew things better. And I think, it's all cyclical. Like they'll come back around, and if we keep modeling and showing up, they see the difference in me and how I respond to things and how I communicate. And sometimes they don't like it because I don't, you know, react when they want me to react, and I
Mhm,
respond instead. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, it is a adjustment for the kids. And yeah, but I mean, I think like the other reason I wrote these books is because I want the kids when they're ready, like when they're mentally and emotionally ready
Mhm.
to have something to read. Like if I
Yeah.
die tomorrow, that they
Yeah.
can be like, "Oh, those are mom's lessons." It was funny the other day I said something, one of them was struggling with something. I was like, "You should read Soul Work." And they were like, "What's that?"
Oh my gosh. That is so that yeah, that is so relatable. That is so relatable.
You got to
Yeah.
stay humble when you have kids.
Yes, you do. They will humble you in a second. Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was like, you know what? I don't think I actually know what you do, Mom. Yeah, I know. It's okay. It's so funny.
You
Yeah,
should just
but
leave it on their pillows at night.
you're marked on like the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
No, they'll come to it when they're ready. Maybe in 20 years or something.
Oh my
But I
gosh.
do think, yeah, that piece, the parenting piece, is important because I think a lot of parents do feel like they have control for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason.
Yeah.
And releasing that, surrendering to that, and just really leaning into doing your own work. Because that's the ripple
Yeah.
effect from your own work is the most impactful.
I mean, and that's true for all relationships. That was for me a huge aha early in my psilocybin work is that I can't change other people. I can only work on myself. But through working on myself, I either, other people will respond in a certain way and they might change, or I set a new boundary and we part ways, right? Or whatever it is. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, that was a huge revelation for me in the very beginning of when I started doing psilocybin work, and yeah, we can't
Hmm.
change other people.
We can't. Yeah, and I think there's so many things we want to change, even systems or the things that are making us crazy politically and like all of this stuff. And it's the same lesson can be said for all of
Mhm.
the ways in which we feel like powerless or out of control.
Mhm.
It's like bringing it back to the Dalai Lama. I was just watching a documentary on him, and the guy who had done the documentary had also done one like 30 years prior.
Mhm.
And in that one, he had asked the Dalai Lama, what do you do? Like, what's your daily practice? And he talked
Mm.
about in his meditation, he includes the Chinese government and sends them love and light and all this stuff. And so in this most recent documentary, the documentarist, that's a word, said, okay, 30 years ago, you said you included them in your prayers, in your meditation. What practical good has that done? And he said, well, no, it's not to change them. It's for me.
That's right. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I was just gonna say that guy missed the point. Who asked the question?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that. And he was so like, "Oh, no, it's like that. Like, I do for me, and then it ripples out, and
Yeah.
that's how we do it." Yeah.
I mean, I had a conversation with my oldest daughter over the holidays about all the stuff that's going on in our world right now, politics and the news cycle and just the relentless crazy making that is going on in the world. And, she's young and passionate. And I said, but you can't let it you can't let it impact your inner compass, like your inner peace. You can feel passionate about a cause. You can show up to support a cause, but don't let it impact your energy and like get you all into this crazy like rah. And I mean, we all see that now. If you get on social media, that's all you see is like people just screaming at each other. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, that is not, you're just hurting yourself. You're not moving the needle by screaming on Facebook and putting everything in
Right.
caps. And, it's
And
like,
that's the whole illusion of control. They think somehow by doing that, they're gonna change something.
or feel better, but you don't. I think you don't feel, at least
Yeah.
me, I can only speak for myself. If I
No.
go down that route, I don't feel better because you just feel powerless at the end of the day. And it's like, I just spent all this energy getting angry and riled up, and I have nothing to show for it but a bunch
Yeah.
of, maybe rude comments in the whatever it is. Yeah.
That is actually the basis for my next book.
Mm.
Because when I think about the systems and how they failed Noah,
Mm-hmm.
I start to become enraged. And
Mm-hmm.
I've thought I really want to speak to this, but I don't know how without becoming overwhelmed with rage. And I finally think I figured out how I'm going to do
Mm.
it. And it is more from a place of just a constructive outline of what is actually going on in the world right now that's not working in systems. And then a framework for how we can think about things in the future, taking it on ourselves. I hope systems can take some knowledge from it, but again, influence, not control.
Mm-hmm.
Like how we can interact with our kids in this different way, how we
Mm-hmm.
interact with ourselves in this different way. It's related to like maintaining connection with the earth, with community, with each other, spirit. with ourselves. Like we miss those components. We do therapy and medication, and that's
Yeah.
sort of like ego management, really, you know? But
Yeah.
it's like the deeper pieces that we're missing. And yeah, so I'm excited to channel my passion around changing systems into this more positive
Yeah.
like offering.
Yeah, I'm excited seeing that come out. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tiffany, anything else that you wanted to, mention about your book before we kind of wrap, or anything else you want to share with the audience? And
Yeah, no, nothing really outside of the soul work book is a big component of the yoga teacher training that I created this past summer. It's called Yoga for Living, and you can find that on the Yo Massage website, but this is a big component. So that
okay.
yoga teacher training is more about it's not just asana, like the physical postures. It's all mostly about how we engage in life and with ourselves. So yeah, that's a big component. Soul work is a big component of that.
Yeah.
I
We'll be
think
sure to
that's it.
share all the info and website and everything on the show notes as well. So
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah, well, I thank you so much for coming back on, and I follow your journey on social media because you do a lot of very honest and vulnerable posting about where you're at in your process, and it's a daily process. It's
Daily
up and
process.
down, and it's every day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you guys are out there and you're struggling with life or grief or anything like that, I highly recommend checking Tiffany's social media out. Check out her book. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Thanks.
not alone. We're all in these very similar human experiences together, even though they're unique in their own right. But we really are not alone in this.
Amen to that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone for tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Dose. And we'll be back again next week.
Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Dose with Michelle Harrell. If today's episode moved you, share it, subscribe, and explore more at purplecityexperience.com. Until next time, stay open, stay grounded, and go beyond the dose.